Well, today's verdicts are the most significant step so far in the long road to justice for Stephen Lawrence's family. Since April 1993, when his son was murdered, Stephen's father, Neville, has been relentless. But the last 18 years have cost him dear. His marriage, his health, and his quality of life. This is his personal account of that journey, seen through the eyes of our Home Affairs correspondent, Simon Israel. And again, I should warn you, his report does contain flash photography.
As the years have gone by, the story hasn't changed. There's never been a script, or a rehearsal, or an auto cue. Neville Lawrence has simply stood and described to countless audiences the impact of the murder of his son Stephen.
And as I'm looking at you today, I wish I could see my son in the crowd, because he wanted to be an architect. He wanted his name to be known because of the buildings that he did. It's 18 years now, and my son is being remembered because he's dead. I wish it wasn't that way.
Today, he's at a school in Ipswich. Most of his audience wasn't even born when Stephen was killed. The story is new to them, but for Neville, there's added momentum. For there's only a week to go before the long-awaited trial begins.
I know some of you might be too young to know the full story, but by the end of this year, some of you will know, because of the media around the death of my son and my family, what happened on that night.
Since that night, it's been a long and painful journey. Now, 18 years on, he's got the only thing he ever really wanted, a trial of those suspected of murdering his son. He's well aware this may be the last chance while he's alive, and he's come back from Jamaica, where Stephen's buried, to see it through.
I visit his grave as often as possible I can. And he's lying beside his great-grand. It's a beautiful spot.
He's been pivotal in changing the face of British policing. His determination for justice has brought improved racial equality. But that's not what he set out to do. Since Stephen's murder, Neville's lived through 7 police investigations, 1 aborted trial, 1 inquest, and a public inquiry.
Well, my role and my ex-wife's role has been to say that we're not going to give up, and we're going to push it to the limit as far as possible we can, in any way possible.
For Neville and Doreen Lawrence, the handshake with Nelson Mandela 2 weeks after the murder made everything possible. It gave Stephen's killing an international dimension. This was now as much about colour as it was about justice.
People from abroad seem to be more interested in what's happened to our son than the Prime Minister and the government of this country.
I hope that people who've got information will now come forward and we'll get to the bottom of all this mess.
If it had been a white boy, they would have surrounded the black community. They would have arrested as many black boys as they could, and they would not stop until they get the killer.
By 1996, the fight had extended to the family bringing its own private prosecution. Again, in Neville's words, testing the limits of what's possible. Within days, the trial collapsed.
Well, I believe in fairness, and I don't think what happened today is fair at all.
When they walked away the first time, I think it was about 12 of us was in the Old Bailey that day. And I remember all 12, all the solicitors, the QCs, was in a room downstairs just crying for maybe about an hour after they were allowed to go.
3 years later, Neville was to come face to face again with his son's suspected killers. This was the Macpherson public inquiry, set up by the new Labour government to look at why Stephen's killers were not caught. Tensions ran high. Racism in policing became its central issue.
This is not a circus. I'm allowing you to join in my private affair. And so you will have to conduct yourself the way my family have been conducting themselves.
Dr. Richard Stone was on that inquiry, which took place above this shopping centre in South London.
Did we leave anything out, do you think?
I felt from the early days that there was some kind of corruption involved in the police.
I think we did as well. The thing is that, as Tom Cook said to us, who was our senior police officer who was on the panel, people who are involved in corruption don't leave a paper trail, they don't make notes of their meetings and so on. It's very difficult to pin it down and nail it. So the smell of it was there, very much there, and in the conclusions it does actually say that the smell of corruption was strong, but there was never sufficient evidence presented to us.
Certainly no new evidence emerged to link anyone to Stephen's murder. The inquiry may have brought radical changes to policing, but justice for the Lawrence family remained as far away as ever.
I'm here today to say thank you. I don't think anybody is going to be prosecuted or anybody is going to do any time for the death of my son. It pains me, and I'm just hoping for a miracle. Thank you very much. I can't explain how I felt. I still cannot tell people. I always say to people that I cannot tell you how I feel. For you to actually feel the way I feel, you would have to lose a child.
John Grieve was the man, after the inquiry, the Met Police designated to repair the damage, to lead another investigation, to use whatever tactics were necessary, and to restore some semblance of trust with the Lawrence family.
You had tried your best, and I saw that you had tried your best. And from all the other people who've been before, I think you showed the family more respect than anybody else's did before.
People in the police just couldn't believe that it was happening in the way that it was, that they could have made the mistakes that had been made, that things could have gone so horribly wrong. And they looked for other explanations initially, but it became impossible not to believe that there was something that had to be changed here. But what this is really about is a family that won't let go.
But there came a time when he had to. The new investigation had made little progress. The strains on his own marriage had become too great. He left for Jamaica.
When I realized I was going to lose the rest of my family because we had to go through a divorce, that was another loss that I wasn't foreseeing, which made it even worse for me.
In 2004, the police and the Crown Prosecution Service informed the Lawrences they could do no more. Enter human rights lawyer Jocelyn Coburn. She advised Neville to fight the decision.
Was this letter, in effect, spelling the end of the case? Is that the impression?
That's certainly the impression that we got. Neville was adamant that there must be a way into this. I mean, you know, this was a murder where there had been a number of witnesses. It wasn't an unexplained event. There must have been evidence which still existed all these years later.
They threatened legal action against the Director of Public Prosecutions to keep the case open. Eventually, a new team of detectives was set up. The legal threat was withdrawn. Everything in the case was looked at again, including the forensic evidence. 2 years later, in 2008, came Neville's desired miracle, the breakthrough around DNA. News of it emerged by coincidence at the memorial service to mark the 15th anniversary of Stephen's murder here in St Martin's in the Fields. Hope replaced the painful memories.
That year I left here with a little bit more hope, thinking that at least maybe there'll be a better outcome if they've found some evidence to actually take these people to trial.
The Macpherson inquiry had recommended changing the rules which protected everyone from being tried more than once for the same offence. It's known as double jeopardy. It was to prove crucial in Stephen's case. In March this year, Neville returned to the UK from Jamaica for the Court of Appeal's hearing to overturn double jeopardy and to allow Gary Dobson to face a jury on a charge of murder.
I haven't been sleeping in the nights. I'm so kind of up in the air because I'm hoping that we're going to finally get a chance to try these guys for murder, which we tried the last time and we failed, and I'm hoping that this time we'll be successful. I just can't bring myself to say to myself, this is it.
The worry during the Court of Appeal hearing was nothing compared to the anguish he's been through over the last 2 months at the Old Bailey. Today, he was in tears when the verdicts were announced. The entire family has come such a long way, and now the fight has been worth it.
Yes, I'm glad all of the things that's happened because of what we've done and tried to fight for justice. And I'm pleased, but I would have rather to have my son sitting here with me this evening and having a conversation. The price that we had to pay is a very, very heavy price.
Neville Lawrence concluding that report by Simon Israel.